Hello, I'm Dr Charlotte Braungardt and I am an environmental scientist. I am also the scientific advisor to the Antarctic Quest 21 expedition, and with this short video I aim to communicate the scientific projects of the expedition to you in plain English. Pollution of the land, oceans and atmosphere is destroying natural ecosystems, causes climate change and threatens life on the planet as we know it. We know a lot about the science of this already, yet there is still so much to learn about complex interrelationships of natural processes on this planet and how human activities interfere with them. And to develop sustainable solutions for our most pressing challenges, we need to know more precisely the when, where, how much, how severely, how frequently, or how long for? And perhaps the best starting point for placing the Antarctic Quest science projects into a global context for you is providing an overview of the processes we are aiming to understand better through this expedition. So let's start with the Earth's structure. The Earth mantle is a viscous layer of molten rock upon which the crust floats. And because the thick rock of the continents is heavier than the thin rock of the ocean floor, the continents sink into the mantle like a ship within the sea. The thick ice cover on Antarctica adds to that weight, depressing the continent even more. The atmosphere contains gases in high concentrations, such as nitrogen and oxygen, as well as gases in much lower concentrations, including the greenhouse gases that regulate the Earth's surface temperature. And the stratospheric ozone layer protects the Earth's surface from harmful UVA and UVB light. The space between the continents is filled with an ocean teeming with life, which is all based on the activity of photosynthesizing organisms such as algae and cyanobacteria, who use sunlight and draw in carbon dioxide to produce sugars that build their cells. They in turn are consumed by other organisms, and that is the foundation of the whole of the ocean food web, and also very important for climate regulation. Other continents are inhabited by ecosystems of plants and animals, and people who have invented great things of great consequence. And some of the negative consequences include the release of chlorofluorocarbons, which in the 1970s started to destroy the stratospheric ozone layer, particularly in polar regions. The release of additional greenhouse gases that cause global warming. And the release of metals, nutrients, toxic synthetic compounds and microplastics that are transported around the globe. The Antarctic Quest 21 expedition team facilitates the collection of rare and much needed data that will answer some very important fundamental scientific questions and help to refine climate change predictions. So let's start with climate change, much on our minds as the COP26 in Glasgow has concluded this year. The behaviour of the large ice sheets on Greenland and Antarctica is important for all of us, as their melting alone would result in a 60-meter sea level rise. To make such predictions, scientists are utilizing a wide range of very sophisticated techniques, including remote sensing from satellites, ground-based automated weather stations, and detailed and very complex computer models. But the accurate projection of sea level rise is still hampered by major uncertainties about the balance of snow deposition, ice melt, as well as geophysical processes. As the atmosphere above the Antarctic Peninsula warms, ice melts, floating ice shelves break off and float north, taking off the breaks of the glaciers on land, and they then flow more rapidly towards the sea. The consequent loss of ice on land takes a load of the Earth's crust, which then rises in a process called isostatic equilibrium or rebound. That's important for climate modelling because satellite measurements can't tell how much of the changes in the elevation of the ice surface are the result of ice loss or isostatic rebound. Isostatic rebound on the Antarctic Peninsula will be determined with millimeter precision after upgrading a GPS transmitter that is already installed on the rock at Foyne Point. And this has been malfunctioning for 6 years. The expedition team will retrieve existing data and install new equipment that will transmit data for decades to come, so that models of sea level rise can be refined. Satellites are also used to monitor clouds, but satellites can only see the top layer of clouds, and information on layers closer to Earth and the amount of snow falling eludes them completely. The expedition team will measure much needed snow deposition rates from remote locations and report meteorological data that is time synchronized with satellite observations. And that data will go to the NASA Globe Observer program. Overall, the data will contribute to a range of projects refining climate change predictions for the next 500 years. The oceans cover 70% of the planet's surface and are particularly important in climate regulation. This is through absorption of excess heat, regulating temperature through global ocean currents, and dissolution of atmospheric carbon dioxide in surface waters. The Southern Ocean is a major sink for atmospheric carbon dioxide because the main Antarctic deep water branch of the global ocean circulation system forms in the Weddell Sea, where surface water cools on the continental shelf and sinks. This sinking water exports the decay products and feces of a myriad of organisms into the deep ocean, and with it, it exports the carbon dioxide originally captured by the phytoplankton. Scientists call this the carbon pump, and its efficiency is limited by a fresh supply of nutrients to the Southern Ocean, in particular the essential elements such as iron and manganese. So how does this relate to our expedition? Well, weather systems transport air masses, moisture and particles across great distances, and consequently nutrients are deposited on ice sheets and the ocean surface. And scientists who investigate the carbon pump in the Weddell Sea just off the Antarctic Peninsula consider that increased surface melting of snow and ice on the Antarctic Peninsula could make a significant difference to the nutrient provision and hence to the productivity of the Southern Ocean. Snowpack samples analysed for metals and nutrients will help to answer the important questions about productivity and efficiency of the carbon pump in the future. Snowpack samples will also be analysed for their content of microplastics. Microplastic pollution has been found everywhere, in food and drink, soils, water, plants, animals and people, even as high as at 8,840 meters on Mount Everest. But all of that pollution can be directly attributed to human presence and their activities. The next big question is, how far can microplastics travel by atmospheric transport? The samples the expedition team will bring back come from places where no humans have been before, and hence will answer that question. The thinning of the stratospheric ozone layer by chlorofluorocarbons should have been alleviated as a result of the Montreal Protocol in 1987 that banned these harmful substances. Yet over 30 years later, the recovery of the ozone layer is still under debate, and it's also very difficult to measure. Paul Hart's team deployed polysulfone UV dosimetry patches on a daily basis during the Spirit of Scott expedition in 2012. And this measurement of UV irradiance will be repeated during the Antarctic Quest 21 expedition. In this geographic region, this data serves two specific purposes. First, it enables the evaluation of the exposure of people, for example tourists or scientists, to potentially harmful doses of UV. And second, it also helps to evaluate a potential sterilization effect on phytoplankton in surface water arising from excess UV radiation. And that, of course, is important for climate regulation. So, this expedition is really all about making an important contribution to climate and pollution science. And of course, we are also acutely aware of the carbon footprint we are generating with equipment, transport, travel, and more. We have compensated the first 20 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent by supporting a forest protection project in Kenya that also brings new investment into education and women's enterprises. So with our science, our choice of carbon offsets, and also our legacy outreach program, we and our generous sponsors are working towards a number of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, in particular quality education, gender equality, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, and life on land. Thank you very much. Please contact me with any comments, questions or inquiries you may have. Thank you very much for listening.